Hi, Filmatics. Welcome to the show. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Rob Mancini. Rob is an Emmy award-winning and nominated television producer, writer, and director. And Rob also does stand-up comedy. So we're going to find out all about Rob. So let's welcome Rob Mancini to the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Marilyn. I appreciate the opportunity. It's always good to be on a film and television podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool.
Yeah. And thank you so much. And where are you recording live today from?
I am in Los Angeles, live from lovely Los Angeles today.
Oh, great. And we're pre-recording in March, but I know that you're from Pennsylvania, but we will get to that in a bit. But I want to ask, on our show, everyone loves movies. So I want to ask you, what is one of your favorite movies growing up as a kid?
You know, I have a bunch of favorite movies growing up as a kid, and I don't necessarily, I think if I'm a kid and I talk about a movie, I saw Back to the Future Part 2 in the movie theater. And that's the early recollection I remember seeing a movie in the movie theater. And my uncle took myself and my two cousins, and it was such a blast. And it's the first movie moment I remember in my life. And it was, you know, for me, that movie always brings me back and to being a kid and fun memories, and then living so close to Universal. I'm a very nostalgic person. That movie really does it for me.
Oh yeah, and I was upset. I don't know about you, because remember the Back to the Future at Universal, the ride that was so much fun, and I don't think they have it anymore.
They don't. It actually, you know, it's weird. I'm so nostalgic about that kind of stuff that when I first came to LA, the first time I ever came, which is, I don't even remember, maybe in the 90s at some point, I went to Universal, and the ride was still there. And now it currently is the same type of ride, but it's the Simpsons ride now. But I remember, at least I got to go on it once, and I was super bummed out when it closed. But at the same time, I love the Simpsons. And I think they still have the Back to the Future ride, though, in Japan, which is crazy. It still exists somewhere in the world, I believe. And if not, I think you can watch it on YouTube, which is even weirder that I know that. But again, I'm very nostalgic.
So that's good to know, because it was such a fun ride going into the future, and on the skateboard flying in the air. I mean, really, really fun. And Michael J. Fox did a spectacular job. So your uncle took your two cousins. So wow. I hope you guys had enough popcorn.
We had tons of popcorn. I remember, I think I was, this is probably 1989. And so I wasn't that old, but I do remember, I think I was 9 years old. I do remember that we had whoopee cushions for some reason, and we left them in the movie theater after us, thinking that people would sit on them. So even back then, we were doing pranks and funny stuff, which later would come back in my television life. But it was just one of those memories as a kid. And then that movie, especially at the end, they showed the trailer. I think they filmed Back to the Future 2 and 3 at the same time. And at the end of that movie, they showed the trailer for Part 3. And I remember I couldn't wait for Part 3, even as a kid. But for some reason, 2 does it. They go into the future. It's and of course now that date is long gone, but and we're in the future. But it's one of those memories as a kid that I'll always love.
Oh yeah. So okay, I have to ask you this, and everyone's gonna say, "Well, she didn't ask the question." Kids, you brought whoopee cushions?
We brought whoopee cushions. You know, my cousins and I were super. They were a little bit older than me. They're about a year or two older, and somehow they got their hands on whoopee cushions, and I remember leaving them there. And again, we didn't get to see the payoff. And I'm sure that the usher took the whoopee cushions in the theater. But I guess back then, as a kid, you don't know. You just think that somebody's going to sit and it's going to be fun. But that was a fun day. We had popcorn, whoopee cushions, Back to the Future. I would relive it in a minute.
We have got to have our theaters open back up, because, after people hear this, they go, hey, that's such a great idea to welcome people back to theater, to let everyone know what they've been missing. There's going to be whoopee cushions. And people are going to try to watch a movie, and you're going to hear like, meh, meh.
I know. I drove by the ArcLight the other night, which is right by up on Sunset. I believe it's Sunset, right? Yeah. And I was driving by, and I just thought, it's just sitting there. It's just been sitting there for a year. Nobody's been in it. Nothing's happening, and it's a shame. And I'm hoping that soon enough. I know that we have to patiently wait, but hopefully soon enough it's open and we can go to the movies again, because that's one of the things I really do miss.
Oh yeah, and it's like so important. Like your first movie with your mom, your dad, your grandma,
Oh
your
yeah.
uncle, your cousins. Your first date. Hearing whoopee cushions, hearing those people crunch and munch right next to you, and that person, you get the best seat in the house, and then someone tall sits in front of you, so you have to watch the movie leaning to the right or to the
Yeah.
or
That's why I always sit in everybody always wants to sit in the middle. My seat in the movie theater is all the way dead center in the back. And I think it comes from a fear of throwing stuff in front of me. As a teenager, I think that's what you do. I wasn't a bad kid. Whoopee cushions and throwing popcorn, but I remember nobody can talk behind me. I can prevent that. I'm not going to get hit with popcorn by any teenagers, and so I'm always dead center in the back of the movie theater.
I love it. Well, now everyone's gonna be looking for you now.
Yeah, they're throwing behind them and popcorn behind them.
Yeah. But he comes armed and dangerous with the whoopee cushion.
Yeah. Don't cross me.
So I want to ask you. We love movies here. I almost gave it away, but I just wonder, do you have a favorite Criterion film?
Favorite Criterion? I don't know if it's Criterion, but I don't know if the movie Seven's Criterion. But I want, the movie Seven's one of my favorite films, and it's just David Fincher, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey. It's just one of those films that I love. Again, I'm not sure if it's Criterion. But,
okay, but that's fine. Yeah, because we all have like a favorite movie that, like, so Seven, you liked it because of the director and the acting, right? And the story was so strong.
Yeah, there's something about that movie that always got me. Again, that's a movie I remember. I saw it in the theater. I think back then I was just watching. That was like 1995. I saw that, Fight Club. So I was a big David Fincher fan back then. And it's one that I saw in the movie theater, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I remember also thinking, like, this is a fictional city. They never really said where they were. You think it was Los Angeles, but it was always raining. So then you're like, is it San Francisco? But then there's desert, which it could be. You didn't know the location. It was, everything about that movie was a mystery, and it was dark and rainy. And I don't know, something about that movie always got me.
Oh, and then I have to ask, because you're in the TV world, so I want to know, did you have a favorite TV show growing up?
I did. Again, nostalgia comes back to me all the time. So if I would stay home from school sick, there was a bunch of shows on during the day, and two of them were Gilligan's Island and The Munsters.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about being a kid and watching Gilligan's Island and watching The Munsters that had that element of, like, it was perfect for a kid home from school. One was on an island and one was in like a haunted house. and I absolutely loved it. I love the old sets. Again, I think I'm a Universal dork. Like, there's something about the things, and I know Gilligan's Island wasn't Universal, but The Munsters was. And it's always something that, like, I love the fact that there was like a set, and even as a kid I'd stay home, and I was watching Entertainment Tonight as a kid, and they did a Gilligan's Island reunion, and they showed all this behind the scenes, and that's where I said, like, oh, that would be so cool to do that for a living.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And just a fun show.
Yeah,
two fun shows, innocent, and they got me hooked.
Yeah. I liked Gilligan so much that we played Gilligan's Island, because I lived in Florida, and there was like lots of like islands and stuff, and everyone says, "Oh, what character did you play?" I said, "Gilligan Et." I made up my own character.
Did you ever get off the island, or were you stuck?
I think I was stuck all through high school because I was 20 miles away from kids, and no one could come visit me. So I just had to just make up stories and just play pretty much with, like, I forced my two sisters and just the one neighbor down the street.
Gotcha.
You're like, okay, you can be the professor and you can be Marianne, and I'm Gilligan Et. They're like, what? I go, that's right. He has the most fun, and that's who I am.
It was a fun show. They never got off the island, but as a kid, I was like, why would you want to leave? There's always like cosmonauts landing and like monkeys throwing grenades and natives trying to get you, and it was just like the most fun place to be. And they somehow never ran out of food and clothes.
Yeah.
So
oh my God, the
why not be stuck
cosmonauts.
there?
Oh, you just reminded me of the Lost in Space too. The robot,
Yeah.
run, Will
Oh, yeah.
Robinson, run. And and everyone's gonna say, "Oh, you know, the monsters. We love the names. We love the grandpa and the mom." And
Oh yeah,
is that
Al
what
Lewis.
that was that Wednesday or Tuesday? Right? Was that the one Wednesday where she?
That was the Addams Family.
Oh, okay. Well, I like them
Yeah.
all too. So
Yeah, same kind of, you know, there was a theme of like haunted shows back then. You know, it was part of the world.
yeah, it was great. So great. So yeah, and so you kind of hinted to us that one of your favorite directors is David Fincher, right? And I
Mhm.
was wondering, can you share a favorite film shot with us?
Yeah, it's not a spectacular shot, I don't think, but that library scene in Seven, where that shot on the dolly and Morgan Freeman's looking through books and you hear his internal monologues going on. It's just one of those things that it always, again, not a real library. It's the Bank of America building downtown. But it's one of those things where I was fooled. I thought that was the best library in the world. And later in my life, when I ended up working on this ghost show for Travel Channel, we had to film in libraries all the time, and I literally every city we went to, I searched out to try to find a library that looked like that, and I never could, which led me to Googling that library to only find out that I couldn't find something like that because it just didn't exist. It wasn't a real library. They turned an old bank into a library, but still, again, it was a fun shot. The music was great, and yeah, I really love that scene.
Oh yeah, and I love libraries. I mean, I love libraries. There's so many. There's like some libraries with spirals, and in China, I think there's one in a cave. So we just have to write them, and when we write books, we just write these spectacular ones, and hopefully the movie magic will make it come to life. But I want to ask you. So, Rob, how did you start? You said you grew up in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a town called Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is, I guess there's a couple active. Peter Boyle is from Norristown. Tommy Lasorda, the Dodgers coach, was from Norristown, Pennsylvania, who just passed away. Maria Bello, the actress, is from there. But there was never really anything in my town that led me towards wanting to do film besides a buddy of mine, Mark Nolan, his dad, Patrick Nolan, was the writer of the movie The Jericho Mile. I don't know if you remember that TV movie from the 70s, but it was great. It was Michael Mann's first movie that he directed, and it won a Emmy for Best Picture, because back then TV movies won Best Picture. So that was the only in I had towards film. He was a writer, and I was in Pennsylvania. I wrote comedy, stand-up comedy. I always was into TV and film, but I kind of fell into this pattern of doing like graphic design for a signage company. I had a lot of jobs, and then I had a really good job. It was a great company in my hometown, and they did signs, and I designed them, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And then I used to be in a band back in the late 90s, and my drummer, who was a composer at that point, we reconnected, and he was saying, hey, we should move to Los Angeles, and maybe you can take a shot at doing film and TV, and I can be a composer. And I think it was July of 2008 that I finally just gave my notice at my job, packed my stuff, and moved to LA as like a full adult late in my career with no credits, and really not a ton of training behind me. And I just said, I can always come back to it. So I packed up and moved out to Los Angeles, and in 2008.
And
that was,
yeah, you told me that you just thought you were just going to go get coffee as a PA, but you are like,
yeah, I moved out here with the only goal I had was to work on a set, whether it was a movie or television. That was it. So I didn't have a hard goal, but I figure if I set my goal really low, at least I would have accomplished it. And if I had to move home, I can say, I did what I did. I went out there and accomplished it. So I got here and then said, oh, wait, how am I going to get a job? And I had some ins in the industry from people that I knew, but I didn't really want to use any. I was too prideful to use any, which was dumb. That would come back to bite me later. But so I just filled out applications, a ton of them. I went online, Craigslist, and sent emails to the networks like E, and every network I sent an email to. I found people's names online. I went on interviews, and then my goal was to send 100 emails a week until I got a job. And I got a job. Somebody called me back. My buddy Alex Orr, who's my buddy now, he's now the executive producer of the show Easy on Netflix. And it's a really great show. But he called me, and he was doing this weird serial killer documentary. And they were just they weren't looking for people, but they needed an intern. And I said I would do it. I didn't need the credits for anything, but I said I'll work for free. And that was my in. I worked on this documentary. I literally stayed as long as I could every day. It felt like it was forever, like 20 hours a day.
Oh my gosh.
But I learned everything I could. And then through that, they really liked me and then brought me on to a Snoop Dogg show for the E! Network. And then it kind of just snowballed from there. And I worked, and every place I went to, I asked questions and learned and went into the edit bay and went on set and asked the director and bugged the producers. And I was just there as long as I could be. If everybody was home at the end of the night and there was one assistant editor left, I asked if I could hang out with him and learn to do what he did. So through that, I kind of accelerated my career, but it was not an easy task. It was very hard, and it was late, but for me, it was new and it was fun. So I didn't care. And even early on when I wasn't getting paid any money, it was just, I was accomplishing what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's just amazing. See, like your hard work, your passion for it, and going the extra mile to really learn and study. And you were graced by people that were generous that would allow you to learn and share. So to all those people that were gracious and kind to let you learn and shadow, they were spectacular, because there's a lot of people. Myself as a female, it's a little harder, like to find spots where you can shadow or get in. So anyone that's gracious and kind to be a mentor or share knowledge to someone hungry to learn, because look at you now, you're an Emmy winner. So you, that's just so fantastic that someone helped you go up the ladder so you can shine bright. So congratulations. That's such a great story. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of those mentors were female. There was like a lot of those shows that I had were female producers and directors that I bugged everybody. So anybody that knew what they were doing, or at least appeared to, I was into, and I really loved them all. Like Joe Honing used to be a producer of The Daily Show. She did this TV series called Tree Hugger Television for Planet Green, which was like a kooky show about UFO hunters and it was very weird, but it was really funny, and she was super talented. And that was a full cast of female producers and directors, and they were awesome. And they really helped me learn along the way. And then from there, I connected with people that I'm still connecting with, like Michael Williams, who is a producer. He created the show Queer Eye, and he's a great mentor of mine. He's an Oscar winner and won an Oscar for the documentary Fog of War. And I still connect with him once a week and bounce ideas, and we have projects together. So those relationships that you build early on really, really matter. And holding those relationships are really important.
Oh, speaking of Fog of War, guess who came on our show? What's his name? Let me see. He's going to be like, he and Adam Cosberg, head of McCoy Films, producer of the Academy Award winner, The Fog of War. Yeah, so it's a small world. He was amazing and so kind. And so you got to work with the rap mogul Suge Knight doing a pilot.
I did. a lot of people ask me, like, what's the craziest thing I did in film and TV. I did a pilot with Suge Knight, who is now in jail for murder. But we filmed at this thing, and we like kind of lived in this castle in Hollywood for a week or so, filming this crazy pilot about his life that I wasn't sure where it was going to air, but I was very nerve-wracking because I heard all these horror stories about Suge Knight dangling Vanilla Ice over the balcony of a hotel, and him possibly being responsible for the murder of Tupac Shakur and all these crazy things. And in the end, he was, I know he's in jail for murder now, so this is kind of a moot point, but he was one of the nicest people I've ever worked with in my entire life. Literally, like, brought lunch for us some days. And, I judge people on how they are in person. And he was one of those people, even though now I know in hindsight he was in jail. But I went into this very nervous about him and came out of it saying, like, wow, he was a super nice guy, to me at least.
Oh, well,
after that, it didn't turn out so well for him.
Oh,
but
gosh. Well, yeah, Tupac Shakur, when I was in Vegas, and like I kind of never know people when I run into them. Like people are like,
Right.
there's, they'll say like, oh, there's Leonardo DiCaprio. I'll go, where? And he'll be like standing right next to me. I'll just never, spot them. But I just remember his sister was so kind of nice. And I lost my friend because she ran off with some guy. And I was kind of by myself, or I think we were at like, what was it? The Caesar's Palace. And she's like, you can come hang out with me. And they were just so lovely, so kind and so nice. And she kind of like, just babysat me a little bit. It's like, come stand with us at the tables, the card tables. So like you said, sometimes people are really nice, but some people get involved in things that lead them astray. So, hoping that everyone, has a good path and that you just, choose more wisely, right?
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah. So, can you just share with us, like, during lockdown, how did COVID affect your art, and your life?
Oh, it was terrible. It was, and I think it was terrible for everybody. So I didn't think it that hard because, I think it's the one time in our life where you can't really complain about something because everyone on earth is going through the same thing you are. Like, I was thinking like, oh man, this is so terrible. I'm locked in my house, but everybody was locked in their house, and not just everybody like in Los Angeles. Usually these problems that we have are personal, or at least, there's a group of people that have the same issue, but this is something that everyone on earth had. So I knew I really couldn't complain about it. So I knew I had to make the best of it. But a show that I was working on at the time, which was a spin-off of the show Queer Eye, about businesses, that I was really excited to do. That stayed in pre-production almost until, if COVID started in March, it was in June until they eventually said, hey, we don't know how long this is going to go. We're going to have to pull the plug on it. So that happened, which was devastating because then there goes your money. And I know a lot of people were out of money at that point, but you don't have money coming in, but you also don't have work. And in this business, you're always, every 4 months, especially freelance, you're fighting for your next job. And that was I've been very blessed in this business to continuously hustle as hard as I can and really not have a lot of downtime. But that was one of the times where I said like, oh wait, I don't have a job. But I did have a backup, which was my show I do for the Oprah Winfrey Network called Homemade Simple with Layla Ali, which was one of my shows that I thought in my life was hey, this is in my back pocket and it's going to be on forever. Every show, it was a great 6 to 8 months of work. We got nominated for an Emmy every year. Every once in a while we would win. And shortly after my other show got canceled, the network called and said, hey, I don't think we can do this year. And we lost that show. So at that point I was like, all right, so my show's gone, my backup's gone. And now there's no work at all. And nobody was working at all. The few people that were doing remote things from their computer, but most of the city, I think, was out of work. So I started thinking, what can I accomplish during COVID? So I started writing new shows. And I came up with two new shows. One was a game show, and the other one was a collectibles documentary series. And both of those are being pitched right now. So that was a great thing to come out of COVID. And then I also started writing a screenplay. I never did that before. I've always wrote short films and short things and comedy sketches and things like that. But I started writing a romantic comedy, and I'm still working on it. But I think, these are all things that I wouldn't have done without COVID. And I think COVID kind of forced me to grow. And ultimately, because my other shows, which I love and appreciate for years, got canceled, it put me in a position I am now to be pitching bigger and better things. I think that after a while, I think I was stuck where I was in my career, but because I wanted to be stuck, it was easy to get stuck and have say like, oh, here's a paycheck. But I didn't really come out here to get stuck. I came out here to like have fun and be creative. And I think that maybe that was the universe's way of telling me to unstick myself and get moving.
Yeah, and we love Homemade Simple. Well, we're gonna like veto it back on. Bring it back, bring it back. Come on, our audience. They're like, write to the network and say, because that was really nice. Homemade Simple. You also did Blank Wall Overhaul. You're a TV series executive producer. Street Outlaws TV series supervising producer. Street Outlaws, Fast and Loud. Oh my gosh, and The Dead Files. Woohoo! I think we need to bring those back. I Hate My Yard and The Outdoor Room, Lifeguard, woohoo, so California. And Are You Fast? I like that. Animal Intervention, hello, because who has a dog? We have dogs. What's your baby's name?
That was an interesting show. The Animal Intervention show was a show that had Clint Eastwood's daughter, and she went around the country trying to have people giving up their big animals like tigers and stuff like that. And one of the episodes we did back 10 years ago was about Joe Exotic from the Tiger King. So we actually met with the Tiger King, Joe Exotic, from that hit Netflix series 10 years ago.
Wow.
So when Netflix finally made that series, I was saying, hey, I've known that guy was crazy for years now. And it was something. I still have all the footage and a phone call from him screaming at us, very angry, threatening us. So yeah, that guy he's been like that for years. So that was kind of fascinating. But yeah, all those other shows, Street Outlaws, Fast and Loud, they're hit car shows on Discovery Channel. Blank Wall Overhaul is a show I created for an online platform called Craftsy, and it's set in Nashville. That was a fun series that I did that ran 2 seasons and got nominated for a daytime special class short form Emmy. Just like I said, I do a lot of stuff that I like and that's fun, and I love cars. I love design. And then every once in a while you get hired to do a show where you're like, I know nothing about this, but I can get into it. So you meet a lot of interesting people, and unscripted's not for everybody for sure. But it's kind of what I fell into, and I really appreciate it. It makes me happy. I love working on set. I get to work with, like I said, amazing people, and you get to see crazy things that you never would see in your life.
And Rob, where can people keep up with you? Because we're almost at 29. Where can they keep up with you to see what you're working on next?
What I'm working on next is a pilot for BBC. I can't talk about what it is. And then I'm hoping once COVID's over, I can get back into comedy. But I don't really have anything. You can check out my Instagram. It's Robert John Mancini. And that's pretty much it. Same thing with my Twitter, Robert John Mancini, and IMDb. But I'm still putting out a lot of material. I'm excited to work on this pilot. We shoot that in a week, and hopefully more to come in 2021.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob Mancini, Emmy winner, stand-up comedy. And we're going to have to bring you back for comedy. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. And Rob, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.